Shango Los, host of the Shaping Fire podcast. If you like listening to smart interviews with the top minds in cannabis, I invite you to check out the show at shapingfire.com. We also have an extraordinary YouTube channel with over 150 speaker videos I've recorded at events just like this one. In fact, we've got 2 or 3 presentations by Jeff on the channel as well, so that is awesome. There are postcards in the back to remind you in case you forget the name Shaping Fire. Jeff Lowenfels is author of the seminal Teaming with Microbes, Nutrients, and Fungi book series on the soil column for 43 years. When I asked Jeff what version of his bio that I've given before, he said, just say that he might be the lord of the roots and write books, but he is most proud of starting Plant a Row for the Hungry, a program designed to get every gardener to grow 1 row of food to donate to someone who needs it. You don't need to buy his books, but you do need to plant a row. Please welcome Jeff Lowenfels.
Okay, let's see if this works. So I usually give talks about science and all that kind of stuff. This is not that kind of a talk. This is about a new bud in town, auto-flowering cannabis. And for those of you who have grown auto-flowering cannabis in the past, forget everything you know. I may write these kinds of books, have a little trilogy, know Lord of the Roots, all that kind of stuff. What a lot of people don't realize is that I used to be a lawyer, and then after that I was head of a Fortune 500 division, doing business stuff, but now I'm retired. And so as a retired guy, I get to do what I want to do, so I get to relax with the other old people and we do what we want to do. Come on, folks, it's supposed to be a little laughing. And I write a garden column in the Daily News. Shango indicated I've been writing for 43 years every single week, never missed a week because they put your picture in the paper and that tells people you're not home. Why don't you just rob his house? And so I always have a column, and so I write about stuff. And for years and years, in 1975, cannabis became legal in the privacy of your home in Alaska. And so I would always tell my friends, whenever I write about a tomato, I'm really writing about a cannabis plant. And a lot of people in Alaska grew cannabis indoors, very difficult to do. And I would give a little bit of advice. And then we actually came overtly legal so that you could have it outside of your home. And so I wrote a column about whether or not I should give some advice on cannabis. And sure enough, I decided that I should, and I started to write in a regular garden column, first time in the United States of America, advice about how to grow cannabis. And of course, I got a lot of nasty letters from some of my readers, who thought this was just a terrible thing to do. And then I was invited to the Garden Writers of America, which I belong to give a talk, first time ever on cannabis. So I went in 2016, and I gave this talk on cannabis, and I said, it's the next tomato. And of course, the response was not great, And I said, listen, tomatoes. The thing about tomatoes is it's America's #1 favorite vegetable fruit to grow. It's the #1 plant. It's just everybody loves it. And why do they like it? They like it because there's so many different choices. I mean, there are thousands of different choices. They like it because, it's so easy to grow. You can grow tomatoes any place. I mean any place. And I mean any place. Tomatoes are just unbelievably easy to grow. They are delicious. Their fruits are enjoyable. Of course, you all know this. There's always an improvement going on in the tomato world. They're getting rid of some disease or whatever. Constant improvement, opportunity for big harvests, if you want to do that. And of course, really evokes memories of your grandparents and things like that. Tomatoes are just one of those things. The scent evokes that memory. The scent comes from trichomes, just like it does in cannabis, which is kind of fun. Now, the flowers are a little different, male, female, et cetera, but it's very similar to cannabis, I explained to these garden writers. And then I went through the list, and of course, you guys, again, all know this stuff. There are so many choices when you get to cannabis, just like tomatoes. It is so easy to grow. That's why they call it weed. It's got enjoyable fruits, obviously. There's constant improvement in this field, and there's opportunities for big harvests, just like with the tomatoes. And the scent, of course, evokes memories. Sometimes not that good. My father, he had that ability to be able to smell cannabis 2 miles away. But anyway, the rest of the story. The problem is that growing cannabis is a pain in the ass. I mean, let's get right down to it. It's not the easiest thing to do. For one thing, it's not legal in a lot of places, so that's sort of a problem. The plants can be really, really, really big, and even the small ones are too big to grow in a normal garden or on a deck. I mean, you know, it's just, this is not a spot where you would really want to grow cannabis. It just doesn't do that well. So, you know, and it has a photo period requirement. You've got to have 12 hours plus 1 minute of darkness before it'll start to flower. And if you live in a place like Anchorage, Alaska, that happens to occur the very same time that the heavy killing frosts occur. So you don't really grow. You know, and then of course it's got another problem. You plant the stuff, maybe even indoors, and you wait and you wait and you wait and then you get to the equinox. And then you still got a couple, 3 or 4 more months to grow while those. It just takes too long, you know, unless you have something cool like this, which I really just, God, I love this thing. I want one of these in the worst way. A little light deprivation thing. Isn't that cool? Cue the lights. Okay. So I think it's the next tomato, except it's got these problems. It's just too hard for a home gardener to grow. So, you know, all of a sudden, we discovered that there's another cannabis in town. All right, so we have Sativa indica, at least we say we have Sativa indica, and then there's this third one, ruderalis. And the ruderalis was discovered in 1903 in the Volga River area by a Russian guy, and he went, look at this. It's a little teeny guy. I don't know why I put 1924 there. They're very small. They have long, narrow leaves. And unlike the indica and unlike the sativa, ruderalis has none of the problems with regard to growing for a long time, because you go from seed to harvest in 7 to 9 weeks. And it doesn't have a photo period problem. So that means you can grow the stuff anytime, anywhere, any place. Whoa, this is a gift from heaven as far as the regular gardener is concerned. Where did they come from? Well, there were all these plantations that were around the world, and every now and then, you know, one of these plants would decide they wanted to get out of town, and so 2 of the plants would go off into the side someplace and breed, you know, away from everybody else, and then suddenly realize, oh shit, winter's coming. And so genetics take over, and the next thing you know, you've got plants that are breeding and flowering regardless of the photo period. Now, there were some big problems with the ones that were discovered in 1903. They were very weak. They had a lot of CBD type stuff in it, but they didn't have any THC in them. The plants were small, they were runty, you know, and everybody thought, this is stupid, why are we even looking at them? And the big guys, the growers, laughed their heads off, and most of them are still laughing their heads off about this stuff, but a few dedicated genetic scientists got around and decided, you know, let's think about this a little bit. There are ways to make things stronger. We can do that with the genetics on this ruderalis. And so sure enough, it took a long time, but in I think it was 75 or something like that, this guy came up with lowrider, the first sellable, full-fledged auto-flowering cannabis. And he crossed it with Williams Wonder and Northern Lights and a Mexican ruderalis, not a Russian one. That's the theory. Some people think it was from Finland, you know, all these myths developed. Well, anyway, he developed this thing and he called it lowrider. Now, you know, this was a big advance because this plant was a plant that had some THC in it, you know, and it looked like there was a good future here, but the problem was they were really small plants and the flowers were pretty weak in terms of, you know, getting enough to be able to get an ounce or a lid. So, you know, very hard to really get excited about this kind of a harvest, you know, and it was clearly one of those situations where the big guys, again, they just thought, you know, so this is the kind of stuff you'd find on the, you know, those listservs, you know, like, ha, you're crazy, what are you growing this stuff for, you know, or, you know, auto flowers are not potent, blah, 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 you know, blah, 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 you know, and then all of a sudden, we started to see pictures like this, you know, and people started to set up their own listserv, auto flowering network, And oh my God, the breeding began, and autoflower network, which if you're not familiar with, you should be, became, and and then people started to give talks on this stuff, and all of a sudden, holy crow. So I'm here to try to take some of the bullshit out of, the idea that autoflowering cannabis are no good, because they're not the same plant you used to think they are. They're just absolutely spectacular. They're fun to grow, and they are definitely something which a home grower will want to grow, and commercial growers should think about growing as well. And I know there are a lot of skeptics, so we'll just sort of go through it. Let's just start with the potency. The potency of autoflower cannabis is now just the same as the potency of regular cannabis plants. You can grow CBD, CBG, blah, blah, blah. I mean, this stuff has everything that a cannabis plant has, and everything that you'd want to have, and the strengths that you'd want to have. Of course, these numbers are fool's games. We all now know that it's the cannabinoids and the flavonoids, and these things have all of that kind of stuff as well. Here are 2 commercial plants down in southern Oregon, new breed seeds. They're beautiful, gorgeous plants. Look at the size of the buds on these plants. That's 88.46 ounces, or grams, excuse me. Ounces, holy crow. But even so, that is one heck of a beautiful cola there. And let me tell you, it is a thrill to see this kind of stuff happen in 2019, because if you said this 4 years ago, people would say, you're crazy. And I know people are saying I'm crazy now, but they're here. We've arrived. I'm going to be devil's advocate here. These are pretty good looking flowers, and you can't tell whether they come from an autoflowering plant or whether they come from a normal plant. And they are the next tomato as far as I'm concerned. No question in my mind about it. They look like tomatoes. They grow exactly like tomatoes. You plant them exactly like you plant the tomato, and you take care of them exactly like you take care of a tomato. You can hardly tell the difference between the cannabis and the tomatoes. You can grow them outdoors in legal states. You can grow them indoors in illegal states. And if you have a book on tomato that tells you, what's wrong with your tomato plants, the same things apply to your cannabis plants. By the way, these books are a place to start, but don't rely on them. There are 100 different reasons why your cannabis leaf or your tomato leaf turns yellow. It's not just nitrogen. But in any case, it's the same starting place. There are a couple of little differences. The temperature for cannabis is a little bit higher. And there, of course, is that flower difference. You don't self-pollinate, et cetera, and blah, blah, blah. Male, female. You guys all know all this stuff. I don't know why I have all these pictures here. They both have trichomes on them, of course. We grow fruit for the tomatoes, and we grow the trichomes for the stuff. We know how the cannabis impacts us, and let's face it, when you eat a tomato, it impacts you the same way in many different ways. And of course, it's got all those wonderful flavonoids and all those great helpful things. You can grow them indoors, you can grow them outdoors. So when in doubt, think tomatoes. Just like we dry out our crop, you do the same thing with tomatoes. We process the stuff. Seed is now becoming available all over the place. There are a number of places. I always like to tell people to go to Autoflowering Network and take care of the people that are on that particular site, because they're the good breeders. But not only are we getting more of these, they're getting cheaper, and the labels are becoming better in terms of giving you more information, and hopefully we're going to be able to convince these people to tell us whether or not the plant should be trained, whether it doesn't need training, et cetera, et cetera. All of this stuff is being developed. You'll be seeing it all. The average lifespan is 90 to 110 days, which is really, really quick. And again, they're all labeled. They'll tell you how long they take to grow. It's not rocket science to grow them. They grow so fast that there's hardly time for anything to go wrong. And when something does go wrong, the plant grows through the phase, and the bug goes, wait a minute, well, what the hell happened here? All of a sudden this plant's mature, So you don't get a lot of the problems that you get with normal stuff. You start with the very best organic soil you can. It's got to be a nice growing medium. But oddly enough, if it's too rich, these plants don't do well, which should give you an indication that this is a true tomato type plant. You put it in the ground, you let it grow, you only feed it if it absolutely begs for food. Boy, that's my kind of plant. In terms of the soil food web, where would you put it? Well, these things grow so fast. I mean, they're almost not even an annual. They grow so fast. So you really want to have pretty high bacteria in the soil. You want to definitely put this stuff on the seed because they grow so fast. You want to make sure that they have an opportunity to take place and grow. You want to use regular containers, anywhere from 3 to 5 gallon containers. They grow very fast. Their root systems are incredibly extensive, and you can grow them again in the ground directly as well. Pretty cool, you can have a lot of fun with them. I wouldn't put them in a pot that big, but their root systems are really, really extensive, and you never want to let these plants get root bound because they grow so fast, and if they're getting root bound, that's not good. So you plant them in the original container so they don't even have to be transplanted. Oh my God, less work, 2 less employees, blah, blah, blah. And man, oh man, do they grow fast. When you do transplant any kind of a plant, it puts the plant into stress and it slows the plant down. When you lose a couple of days on an auto-flowering cannabis plant, you're losing a significant chunk of town. So you want to use these kind of buckets, that kind of stuff. You want to use the very best light you possibly can. I've done some experiments with the light tint. Oh my God, they come out incredible. And then I've done it with the outdoor greenhouse. They come out okay, but they're not like they are in the light tint. So the best light you can possibly give them, very, very important. I love growing them in these little tents. You want to give them good ventilation, just like any other cannabis plant. Training is iffy. You don't have to train these plants. Most people don't train these plants. There's actually quite a bit of debate about whether or not you're supposed to have train them. These are plants. That one was not trained. That one was pinched. You can pull them down. You can separate the blah blah blah. When you pull off leaf from a plant, you have to remember you're putting the plant in stress. You're taking away some of the solar panels. So you really got to know that training makes sense. And again, the labels are telling us you gotta think about the lost time. And if you've red teaming with nutrients, you know that you don't gain that back. Let's take a look at a couple of these plants. They're just absolutely spectacular. I can do Pepsi and Coke. So let's grow one. So it starts out on 7th day, and here it is 80 days later. Holy crow. Even my wife walked around the plant every day going, holy crow. She couldn't believe it. They grow right in front of your eyes. It's just incredible. Now that's Mephisto genetics. Here are 3 of my own plants. June 9th, okay, June 12th. Had to go on vacation, had to leave them with a house sitter. So, okay, I put them on automate. Came back, holy crow, June 21st, oh my God. And there's June 28th. They grow, you can hear them grow. Here's July 2nd. They flower after about the 2nd or 3rd week. You actually get flowers on these little puppies. July 14th, the bear shit in the woods? No, bear shit on my lawn in Anchorage, Alaska. Okay, sorry. So July 23rd and July 29th, I had to go on vacation. No, I had to come down here and talk. So I had to harvest it a little bit early. There's the harvest. Holy crow, 60 some odd. Oh my goodness gracious. A little early, but oh boy, delicious. Now, you can get these seeds all over the place. In Oregon, if you're a commercial grower, New Breed Seeds got the first license. They went down with Jeff Markley to get their license and everything else. So they're in Cottage Grove, and their seeds are spectacular. They grow something that people are now calling super autoflowers. They get to be about 4.5 feet tall, and they are delicious. And if you're a commercial grower, you can grow these things straight out, or you can put these things in between your existing plants, because they don't care whether your plants are in veg or flower stage. They're going to grow, and they're going to flower. So you can take up all your spare space. Here's a commercial grow. This is New Breed Seeds, actually. Pretty damn good looking. August 9th, July 2nd. Look at this. Holy crumolo. 2 days. Let me just make a little prediction here. I was around back when this cover appeared on Life magazine. And I remember my father, who was in the food business, saying, yeah, this is gonna be something. This organic food is the way to go. Now, this was 60 years ago, 50, 60 years ago, but I can remember the conversation like it was yesterday, and I became a believer. And it took a while, and sure enough, we are now in the organic stage. You go into any supermarket in the country now, unbelievable, even a Safeway, and there it is, organic food. You can't, and they're getting bigger and bigger, and they have their own labels and all that kind of stuff now. And I believe that I'm having problems with my machine. Oh, okay, so that was December 1970. Huh, interesting. Same thing's gonna happen with autoflowers. You may never have heard of them before. This may be the first talk on autoflowers. You haven't read any articles about autoflowers. They are going to be just like organic foods. They are the next tomato. There's no question about it. They are easy to grow for commercial growers. They enable you to use up every single bit of space you possibly can. They just do incredibly well. It's the next tomato for the home gardener. There's no question that it is going to help take the stigma away from cannabis that still exists in many places. The seeds are so readily available. We're going to be finding them on. You're going to find the plants for sale in the springtime, in the fall. You're going to find autoflowering cannabis plants that you can take home with you. They'll be at that annual plant sale for the botanical garden that's trying to raise money. They'll be in the supermarket floral department without question. It's coming. At Christmas time, you'll find these beautiful little plants that are in the little section there where you buy the little Christmas trees and everything else. Here's Valentine's Day, and then Easter. We've already got little peeps with cannabis in them. Why not? Lovely little plant to go. I mean, I know it's hard to believe. You're going to see these things in bookstores and novelty stores and everything else because this is such a cool little plant. They're so easy to grow. They're so much fun. So. It's just one of these things. Everywhere you're going to see them. You can put them in all sorts of little spots you could never think about doing before. Look at this. Oh, my God, what a terrific thing, Oh, my goodness gracious. It just makes so much sense that people would be going. And if you're a veteran and you can't afford to buy your medicine, you want to grow it. If you're a regular person, you can't afford to buy your medicine, you're in the middle class. You have to grow it because you can't afford to buy it. We're going to end up. These are the next tomato, without question. Little plot in your vegetables next to your carrots and your cucumbers and your marigolds, it's coming. Look at this. This couple, which probably 10 years ago would have sent me to jail had they found me smoking cannabis when I was fishing on the Kenai River. Here they are, a bunch of farmers in the Kenai entering the Alaska State Fair with their cannabis plants. Can you imagine? A state fair has a cannabis entry. Wow, autoflowering cannabis, it's the way to go. And they're going to be so breedable, they are breedable, that we're going to be able to develop all the kinds of cannabinoids and flavonoids and CBGs and CBDs and delta 9s and all the stuff that we're going to want to get out of this stuff. Wow, and for studying, oh my goodness gracious, people like Colin are going to be able to use these plants because they go from seed to flower in such a quick period of time that they're going to be usable for scientific experiments in a way that other plants are not. This happens to be an Australian bastard. Look at that plant. That's unbelievable. When we breed that with some autos, we're going to get some unbelievable little teeny flowers, but thousands of them on this little one. It's just going to be so much fun. They're so beautiful. They're going to be used for landscaping plants. Look at the colors on these things. It's just, and medicines, of course. Of course. You'll be able to grow exactly what you need. Oops. Let's see, what happened? I'm stuck in a do loop. Okay, so, I'm convinced. There's no question in my mind, just like the soil food web movement has taken over in the cannabis industry, these guys are going to get their due. No question. Got to do it always organic whenever you grow.
Hey.
And I'm so convinced about this that I wrote a book. And I wrote this book, and it's coming out in October 20th or something like that. DIY autoflowering cannabis. This is a book I wrote not for you people, because you all know how to grow tomatoes, and you all know how to grow cannabis. But I wrote this book for your mother, for your brothers, for your aunts and uncles, because this is a plant that they should be growing, and you need to help them get into it so that we can remove the stigma once and for all. We can start treating cannabis like the plant we love instead of a gateway drug to taxation. And let's do it. And you can order the book right now on Amazon if you want. Buy a couple for presents to give your parents and your aunts and uncles at Christmas time. And I thank you very much. That's it. I'll take some questions. Yes. And I'll answer
Any
some
questions
good
in
questions
chat?
too if you want.
I can
So
answer-
for
ask them for
the
you.
future of the recreational side, what do you see, where do you see autoflowers being in the large scale commercial side of things?
Oh, I see them replacing so many plants. Let's face it, when you have a plant that takes 6 to 8 months to grow, a lot of things can go wrong. And I think as soon as the professional grower sees how quickly these things grow, and how easy they are, they're gonna get into them big time.
Do you think there's going to be any place for the traditional cannabis that we're seeing today in the futures market?
Yeah, there will be, but it's just so much more difficult to grow. That as these things have gotten so much better, and I wouldn't have said this 2 years ago when I started writing the book. Wouldn't have said it. The genetics have changed so rapidly. Don't you agree, Shango? They're just, wow. And they equal the genetics of anything you've ever grown before. I don't know what else to say about it. They're just. Yeah, that's right. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Shango is gonna be giving a talk at 2:30, gonna be much more advanced. This is the book that he should write for you guys. I wrote the one for your parents, so. Yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, is there any downside to these things?
Well, the downside is that they are smaller, and so the yields are smaller. And so, you've got to adjust yourself to that concept. But on the other hand, the size has some advantages. Much easier to harvest, much easier to trim. And if something does go wrong, see, this is one of the things I always worry about. When something goes wrong in a commercial grow, not you people, but a really bad commercial grower just sprays it with a pesticide and then sells it. And maybe doesn't sell it for flour, maybe sells it for oils. I don't care what they say, there's still some stuff in that oil from those pesticides. And so, when you grow something that only takes this quick period of time, it's conceivable that you might say, okay, I'll throw them out. Simple as that, I'll just start over again. Yes, sir.
This question might be better suited for the next talk, but I'll shoot it anyways. Do you feel that because the cycle's so quick with breeding and we're taking a specific allele, the auto-flowering trait from it, and as far as I can tell, I'm no expert, but I don't believe, like Lowrider was kind of the hit, and would you encourage people moving forward to also go back and try to restart with new Radialis or auto-flowering genetics, just because at the rate at which we're doing generations, could there be a bottleneck by all the flavors sharing that as like a great-grandparent?
Yeah, yes, I would say it would be a great idea for people to breed their own. Ruderalis seeds themselves are becoming available all over the place, and there's no question that what we want to try to do, I think, is breed these things with land races, and get a good simplified, so that we know what we've got. And that's one of the beauties of them. They grow so quickly. The genetics are so easy to manipulate in terms of speed, not in terms of science, but yeah, I'm a big land race fan. And if we can get back to land races the closer we can, let's do it. So.
More questions?
Yeah.
So I have a lot of tomatoes. My tomatoes are doing exceptionally well.
Yeah.
Is there a downside to putting the excess leafage into my compost? Because tomato is it's a nightshade, right?
Yeah.
So is there any danger putting nightshade into my
Not if you,
compost?
no,
There
not
isn't,
not if you
okay.
make good compost.
It does, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
simple as that.
You had said that it produces less. Can you give us some?
Well, I mean, you know, when anybody here a commercial grower, how much do you get off of one plant? I mean, if you, lots, yeah. How many pounds?
I'm not answering your
Oh,
question.
okay.
I have no idea.
So, you know, in terms of quantity, I don't know, maybe you might get half as much. Depends on the plant, the quality of the grow. Again, as I say, I mean, I grew some outside in my greenhouse that only gets half a day of sunlight. You know, I got flowers, but they weren't the big fat colas that I got inside.
Yeah.
So,
A whole lot of difference. Another question?
yes,
Question.
yes.
So you're saying the yield is lower, but you're also saying the root system is quite large. So what's the ratio between root mass volume to harvest quantity
You know,
versus a regular plant?
I would say it's the same as a regular plant. I mean, a plant's a plant to plant, but these roots grow so quickly that if you start them in a little small container, you know.
Get compacted.
So, you know, it's okay after your third or fourth or fifth grow, because you know what to expect, but most people don't. So they start them like they do, and you know, they put them in a little cube, and they put the little, and all of a sudden, whoa, what happened, you know? That slows the plant down. So I guess I probably should have prefaced it all by saying, it's really important the first couple of times you grow these plants, from my perspective, and I don't know about Shango, but from my perspective, is just grow them. Try it out. You know, they grow fast enough, you can see what's gonna happen. See whether your soil's any good, you know, I mean, watch the experience. It's you know, we like to fuss with our plants. There's no need to fuss with autoflowers.
What was your photo period?
Excuse me?
Your photo period inside, what did you run light cycle lights
I
on?
ran mine I ran them, at the beginning, I ran them for 20 hours a day, and then I got lazy and just left the light on 24. I mean, I have a timer, but, so
Okay.
24 hours.
I know some growers struggle with growing photo periods and autos in the same tent, and at the
Right.
12 hours of lights on, they're not getting what they thought they should get out of their autoflowers because there wasn't enough light.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. The better the light, the better the flower. It's just the way it works. But, you know, it's one of those things. But on 12 hours, I've grown them just to fool around as I was writing the book. So I grew them at different times. 12 hours, I got some pretty decent plants. But that was indoors in controlled conditions. But once you get to 15, 16 hours, oh my God, the difference is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Yeah.
So I'd like more information about how much you got. Half as much doesn't help me very much.
Okay, half
What
as
do you get out of autoflowers in general in ounces?
You want me to jump on?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah, because I don't weigh mine, I just smoke it. Vape.
On average, when grown properly, people are seeing about 300 grams of plant.
Yeah.
So that's drastically different than a monster that's gonna pull a few pounds. And there's a lot of variability in the seeds. So you really need to do your research on the genetics in advance, because there's a lot of variability on yield from breeder to breeder.
Yep.
What about within the strain? Is there a variability within it? Like
Depending on the
plant
breeder,
same
depending on the
seeds?
breeder.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's one of the downsides that people.
Yeah, you know, there's 2 or 3 breeders, and of course, we don't like to give the names, 2 or 3 breeders that are phenomenal. They come up to us later on, we'll tell you, but really phenomenal job. And their genetics continue to get better and better and better. Really something. So 300, you know, and I've seen 400, 500 grams on the supers, 500 grams. You know, then you're beginning to get, you know, but again, you're only talking, you know, so you can get more plants in, blah, 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 you know. It's, and it may very well be that that's why it is the next tomato for the home gardener as opposed to for commercial purposes. Yes,
Jeff, when I hear questions about yield,
yes.
the commercial greenhouse person in me wants to say it's less about per plant, it's more about per square foot.
Yes,
Because if you have a larger
Yeah.
plant, you'll expect a higher yield.
yes. And, you know, then you gotta start thinking about labor and picking them and you know, all that kind of stuff. It's,
All right, last question.
Okay, so I don't really have a question, but I'm the breeding technician at New Breed Seed.
Oh, fabulous!
So I can answer some of these yield questions. So for our strains, we usually get about 5 ounces a plant, and that's for like a 75-day strain. If you get like an 85 to 90-day strain, you can get twice the yield out of that. So you get a huge increase with just a little bit longer of a plant. The other thing about yield is, so on a square foot basis, for like the yield per acre for hemp, say, is like 2,500 pounds-ish. With autoflowers, it's up above 6,000 if you're planting 2 foot spacing, the whole thing. And the reason for that is there's just a lot less stem infrastructure, so it's just like all flower cane.
I mean, to see a field of this stuff, thank you very much. And again, New Breed Seeds is licensed here in Oregon. I think you were selling to commercial, to dispensaries, but I think now it's just to commercial growers. And so they've got a lot of experience. They can tell you other commercial growers that have been doing this, and you'll get the scoop. Thank you very much.
Right on. Thank you for Jeff Lowenfels.
I don't.
Hey guys, what's up?
Basically double stack.
Oh, yeah.
These autoflowers, they don't, it sounds like they don't take much light. So if you have a plant that's up this high, where would you set the light for that?
Oh.
LED light.
Start with the latest.
So you can put ahead.
Do you care to drop the seeds online?
Oh,
live?
sure.
Hey guys, so
Hi guys. So lately I've been growing Mephisto genetic seeds. They're spectacular. New Breed Seeds, if you're commercial in Oregon, they're spectacular. Full Duplex has some terrific stuff. There's some really great seed growers out there. Go to autofloweringnetwork.com and patronize those people.
awesome. Thanks, Jeff.
You got it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So we have more classes going on. I don't even know what the schedule is. I need to walk out and check on the schedule. So I'm going to end this one. So this can all be about Jeff and the autoflowers. Shango's coming up next. He's right there behind me. Where do girls here? Been hanging out with them pretty much all day yesterday. Got all kinds of cool stuff going on. I've got some people I got to talk to on the floor. They want to do some interviews. So yeah, like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to hit the bell so you can see me live. Love you guys all. Regenerative crew. Hashtag regenerative.
Yes, sir.
Indo Expo.
Yes.
Woohoo, represent.
Yes, sir. Nice to see you.
Love you, damn pure fam. Bye, guys.
Oh, yeah.